All right, let me know when you kick it off, and I'll refresh my browser, make sure it's working.
Okay, I think it's started on my end. I don't know if it's gonna like refresh on YouTube just yet,
Oh yeah,
but
no, you no, you're showing as live. You're showing
yep.
as live. Very good.
It's not working on my phone, which is annoying, but I'm glad you are all here to double check that it's working.
Okay, I'm gonna go on
Like,
mute here on
what's
Discord
up?
so I can unmute on my computer just to make sure your audio is working.
Okay, cool. Thank you. Appreciate it.
All right. So, are we starting? I think.
Soon we're checking to make sure my stream's working. I don't know. It's been
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
kind of a pain. I don't know why it just died, but hopefully it doesn't do that again.
Mm.
If not, I
I
guess
think
we
Ungar
could
is still
just.
trying to join.
Oh, he is. Okay, that's good.
He's
If
just.
this really doesn't
He's
work, we
trying.
can maybe swap to just recording, but we'll
Oh
see
yeah,
if we can
we
do
could also
this.
do that. All right. Well, Who's says the audio is good
It does look
and
okay. Cool.
so
Yeah, awesome.
you might
Okay,
be
cool.
set.
Okay, so yeah, I hopefully it's gotten out, but we're talking about the new custom game unit changes. We're gonna talk about that. So, I guess to start, does what what would people like to start with? Do we want to start with black ants? Do we want to start with big-headed ants, or do we
I
want to
mean,
start with leaf cutter
I
media?
think the least consequential ones are the black ants, so we might as well start with them. You know,
Yeah, I think that's
they're
good.
the smallest change in my opinion. So, I think it might be a good starting point.
Yeah, I think that's perfect. Yeah, all right. Who would like to? Let's see. Who does anyone want to start conversation with them?
I mean, I could.
Yeah, go for it.
All right. So I think it's a step in the right direction, because Black Ants, I mean, all three of the units they buffed have um been, let's say, just pretty bad overall. Uh, Making the hatch cost reduced to 3 is good. It's probably the most impactful one because at least you save up on a respawn if your army gets wiped. But Black Ant soldiers taking no more than 40 damage. I can't think of that many units dealing 40 damage. Apart maybe Titans, like the big old spider, Sun Spider. But I think they would need a bit more work, maybe like some increase in stats. But yeah, it's a step in the right direction in my opinion. If anybody else wants to say how they feel about it.
Yeah, I can jump in. I totally agree. I think that I think these are nice changes. I don't think it like, and I think it's definitely like a buff overall. I think that you're right though that it's a step in the right direction, but I think they probably need more. Um, I think like they're okay in like free play and skirmish as a colony overall. I don't think they're the worst, but I don't think they're the best. But and I think this is I think this is fine overall. I will say the 40 damage thing. You're right. There's not a lot of creatures that do that. It tends to be like the really powerful like big creatures that will do that much damage. I think the kind of cool
Mm.
thing about it is that because of the level cap that it is, they black ants can never be one shot no matter what level they are. And no matter how much damage they take, they will at least survive 2 hits. Which I think is kind of neat. But I agree with you. I don't think it's like, yeah, step in the right direction. Not, I don't think it's quite enough though. Um, yeah. Gooey Who's, did either of you have anything else you wanted to say with Black Ants?
Mostly, I'm just listening. And in fact, I may end up chatting in your live stream so that other people who join can interact as well.
Yeah,
All
sure.
right. Gooey, you got anything?
Yeah, and I don't really think much more that about the points that you already made up. So yeah.
All right.
Yeah. Oh,
Well,
another thing
yeah.
I wanted to mention
So
just. Oh, can I mention one more thing that I wrote in my notes? I just forgot to say it. I think the
Yeah.
reduced hatch cost is I think it okay. One of the strengths of black ants is that, and actually I'll show this on my stats here. Is black ants have, so I'm highlighting their like DPS and their food per DPS. Um, Black ants, I think they're like one of their like unique traits among all the different ant units is that they actually have a really good food per DPS value, which essentially means that like for their food cost, their DPS is high relative to other ants. So if you look at like all the numbers in like this column right here, actually in all three of these columns, well, we'll just look at level 1 because that's the important one. Lower numbers signify mean it's better. It basically means like for every point of DPS that you do, this number is how much food it costs for that ant to do that DPS. And so if you look at black ants, theirs is 8.7, which is pretty good. Like, there's kind of a range here. There's some ants that are like really low, like vigorous fire ants, have like a 6, and army ant media have like a 6. Big-headed ant miners have a 6. So they're really good at that. But then like you could even get up to something like rapid fire wood ants and like mortar wood ants. Like they're good damage dealing units, and they're pretty close to where black ants are. So black ants at level 1 actually have a pretty good food per DPS amount. And so what I like about this change is that because it reduces their hatch cost, it kind of encourages a playstyle of just spam a bunch of level 1 black ants. And then it doesn't matter if you lose a lot of them because it's extra cheap to bring them back. So I want to just kind of note that I think the reduced hatch cost is probably like the best step in the right direction. And I think it kind of resulted in some other like unintended extra benefits to how they already to like playing into their strengths already. So yeah, I thought that was kind of cool.
That's a good point actually. If they're pretty good at level 1 and they can't be one hit, then and it really greatly improves their value as a colony, I would say.
Yeah,
All right.
exactly.
So, do we want to talk about changes we would make to the specific black ant stats, or do we want to move on to, let's say, leaf cutters?
I think that's a good idea. Yeah. I think especially you and I think you, Gooey, and Ongar were having good conversations about that. So let's hear what you have to say about it, because I have some things, but I think you all had better ideas about it than I did.
About changing it, yeah. I can go first if nobody else wants to go. Uh, Personally, I think you keep the discount. The discount for hatching is good because it'll make black ants, like you said, a bit more encouraging to build swarms. Um, the damage reduction, I think, is nice, but I would change it for something like armor or damage resistance. I'm not entirely sure the difference between armor and damage resistance, but something along the lines so that they're not just resistant to bigger foes. They can also like handle swarms like fire ants or little black ants, that have lots of small attacking units. But overall, I think pretty good.
And just so you know, the difference is that physical resistance it'll take the damage that comes in and reduce it by a certain percent. So like the more damage that you take, the more damage it'll reduce, but it'll always reduce it by like a specific proportion of the damage. Armor reduces it by a flat amount. So if you have 1 armor and you take like 2 damage per hit, you'll reduce that damage to 1 damage per hit. So it's really good against swarms, but not as good against big enemies. So you're probably saying like give black ants more armor.
Yeah, I guess that's what I was saying. Just a bit. Don't want to make them as good as leaf cutter majors, but something to make them a bit resistant. Yeah.
Yeah, they could maybe have like the same treatment as like Leafcutter Media or uh or like Melee Wood Ants, where they have like point 0.2 to point 0.8 armor at different levels. That could probably be a good idea to help them.
Yeah, that would work. That would work. I think very good for dealing with especially fire ants because fire ants are I would say just black ants but better in almost every way. At currently at least they're very cheap. They the two brood tiles at level 3 is quite strong. The vigorous buff is insane. Uh, yeah, I mean, I can't really, except for health. I think health black ants are better than fire ants. But apart from that,
At level 1 and 2 they are. As soon as they get to level 3 and they have 2 bodies, they have more health than black ants. So yeah, even once they get to level 3, they're just
yeah,
better in literally every way. It's
even
very
then.
unfortunate.
Uh, okay. And does anybody have anything to say about the black ant changes or?
Yeah, Gooey, I know you were talking quite a bit. Oh, is Ungar here? Ungar's here. Hey, cool.
Oh,
Um,
did
yeah,
you
if
figure out how to fix OBS? I think he's having technical difficulties.
that's fair. Okay, well, yeah, Gooey, I know you were talking about the other day some of you were talking quite a lot with Ungar and Thick about changes to Black Ants. So did you have any other things to add in?
Well, not really. Didn't really talk all that much about black ants, more about leaf cutters will which come up later. But no, in terms of black ants, not really.
Okay, cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
Ungar, I don't know if you have your mic up and running, but before we move on from Black Ants, I just wanted to give you a chance to maybe talk about it. We can also come back later if you need it, but I just wanted to see um,
Yeah,
if you're
nothing's
ready for that.
stopping us. Okay, I don't. I think he's okay. Well, do we talk about leaf cutters now? I'd say the media at least.
Yeah, we can go to media. That's fine. Um,
All right.
so just a quick overview of the media changes because I think they're. Oh, actually, I don't know if we talked about the Black Ant changes, but I think we kind of mentioned it while we were doing it, and there's not a lot of them. But the media changes are a little more extensive, so I'll just quickly read off what they are. Um, So, leafcutter media, their harvest quantities increased to 20, 24, and 30 at like level 1, 2, and 3, respectively. This is increased from 17, 19 to 22, so it's actually pretty significant increase at all levels. Their health has been reduced to 80, 95, and 110, which is down from 100, 115, and 130. Um, their damage has been reduced to 4, 5, and 6 per hit. This is down from 4.5, 6, and 7. And then their build cost has been reduced to 65, down from 80. And then also just generally leafcutter colonies get to start with some extra fungus than they had before. Um, so yeah, I've got a lot of math I want to talk about with this, but let's have. I kind of want to hear what other people have to say about this first. So if yeah, Gooey and Thick, if you wanna talk about what
Yeah, yeah.
your
I
stuff
can go.
about
I
it.
can go. I think once again it's a very good decision from Slug Disco because me have kind of been like the middle child of the leaf cutter family. You know, you have the miner, which was always better than the media at harvesting. It was just more cost efficient, and the major, which was just in tenfold better at fighting than the media. So you kind of had no real use for the media apart from being there and filling out a slot. But now they made it more competitive. I don't know if they made it even more competitive than the minor. I would have to check the math, but they made it a lot better at harvesting, and clearly they don't want it to be focused on combat. and clearly more focused on pure the backbone of the colony that harvests, but can still like doesn't require intervention from majors if like they're caught off guard, you know. So honestly, I think this is good, and yeah, props just let this go for that.
Okay, cool. And then Gooey, did you wanna say what you had to say about them as well?
Yeah, yeah. Well, even my opinion on them, on the changes to leaf cutters, are kind of more personal, because I really like the leaf cutters, specifically the medias, because they did cost a lot, even though they weren't efficient in gathering. They had a really, really good, I think, really good ability to fight, and I really like that. And now I feel like they are so good at gathering. I've seen kind of, if you take into account the upkeep in free play, they kind of really don't have a stable a food chain, because they gather way too much leaves for the miners you get from workers and medias to be able to process fast enough. I don't think that's really good. It kind of clogs up the food producing. That's probably the only bad thing about this. But yeah.
Okay,
Okay,
interesting.
yeah. Um, and then
But what about you, Bowen?
yeah, I can. So I like. I have a weird relationship with media, because my particular playstyle ends up being that I like having like very specialized units. Um, and so when I play leafcutter levels, like right now, I never take media. I always just I have like 200-ish workers and then some majors, and that's all I do. Um, and I've had a lot of people like argue with me about that in the past, where they've said like that they like to have the intermediary, and they've talked about like, oh well, it sucks when you have all your workers go out and like a praying mantis walks onto your path and just kills all of them because they can't kill the praying mantis in time. um, and I totally get where they're coming from with that, but for a lot of the levels, like especially like the harvest 3.1, I feel like the workers collect and produce fungus so much faster than if you have media on your team, that it almost doesn't matter if they start getting killed by a praying mantis, because you just produce more fungus than you lose from respawns. Um, so I've not really had an issue with that. And to top it off, like, um, if you have like three majors, even if they're at level 1, just walking along the foraging trail alongside the workers, they end up dealing with any threats that come up around. Like they're even on like insane, even on impossible difficulty, it's like your majors can deal with anything that gets in the way. And it might take longer than if you had media, but they just do it, and I feel like it doesn't matter because you're out collecting the other team so quickly, and you're producing so much fungus that like you can kind of afford to be wasteful, and that's worked for me. I've never beaten past extreme using media, but I've beat impossible with workers only before. So um, I just yeah I've found media to be pretty useless for me personally. I think that they've been good for other people. So and I've advocated for these kinds of changes for a long time, where they're where they're like focused on harvesting, um, and they're not as good combat wise, um, and because of that, um, I was really happy with these changes initially. I was still a little skeptical because like you kind of mentioned that like you still need a lot of workers to actually have enough minims to keep up with the leaf like storage, so that things don't get clogged up. And Gooey, you also mentioned that things just kind of get a little clogged up because they collect so quickly. Um, so it still ends up kind of being a balancing act, which I like still. I think that's cool that you have to still balance it out, and it's not, at least for me, it's not just a no-brainer if you just spam workers and then get some majors and then you're good to go. Um, However, I've been doing the math on them, and and it turns out they've just been just buffed basically straight up, um, like in basically every regard. They're so because their price was reduced and their DPS wasn't reduced that much, they actually do more DPS for their food cost than they used to. So they're actually not only better foragers, they also do more damage. The only thing that went down slightly was their survivability, and it was extremely minor. Like I've been looking, like you can kind of see on screen here. This is against just like normal creatures, with about an average DPS of 34.4. So like the things I've highlighted here, this is their like, this is like the time they'd survive against a creature that was doing 34.4 DPS. And this is the, like their, this is their like food cost per their, or this is their like, yeah, this is their food cost per how long they survive. So smaller numbers are better because it means that more of your food is going to surviving longer. So and so I just did the numbers on the like big creatures, and like all of the numbers are like 1 point or less, like difference than what these numbers are here. Except at level 3, where they're actually more survivable now at level 3 than they used to be, at least per their cost. So they just kind of got straight up buffed, like massively, and I kind of thought this was kind of supposed to be a give and take situation, but it ended up just being like a massive buff for them. So I think this, I like the direction they went in, and also they're just better fighters than they were before. So I kind of think that it maybe was a bit of an overcorrection, but I'm not too unhappy with it. I think it'll work really well in free play. So yeah, that was my. Oh, and also the harvest rate, I should mention. This their harvest rate is now. Let me go over to the harvest rate really quickly. No, where is it? This is food collection rate. Nope, that's, yeah, here it is. Okay. The, let's see, where'd they go? Yeah, so this is the leafcutter media like harvest amounts currently per their food cost, and then the bottom one is the leafcutter miners. Here bigger numbers are better. And so as you can see, like the in fact I could probably zoom in a bit so we can see a little better. Like the bigger numbers here are just better, and at every level the leafcutter miners are vastly out harvesting the media. But with the new media, and I wasn't able to put this on screen here, but their numbers right now are at level 1 it's 95.38, at level 2 it's 59.08, and at level 3 it's 60. So they are thoroughly out harvesting miners now. And they got a combat boost. So I kind of really like this. I'm actually very happy with their changes overall. So yeah, that's my 5 cent, or that's my 2 cents on it, whatever the phrase is. Yeah, Ungar, it looks like I saw you were unmuted. Are you able to talk now?
It doesn't seem like it.
Guess not. Okay.
Well, look, what you said is very interesting. I didn't know they got flat out buffed. I thought it was slight nerf to combat, slight buff to food collecting. But honestly, since they were already so weak, I kind of feel like it's okay. And to be honest, it might be something worth bringing into the official campaign levels, because let's be honest, nobody uses, well, no, not nobody, but when you're going for, let's say, the harder difficulties, it's just not worth it to use media. I don't find myself using them, apart maybe on front line to fill in under my majors just because they're smaller. But that's about the only reason I would use them. So it's interesting that they got buffed in combat too.
It's kind of interesting, Thick. We have similar. It seems we have similar play styles, and I feel like we're one of the only ones who play that way. Because like basically everybody on the ICS server thinks I'm just like crazy for not using media, um, and they all like they find it much harder to use media on like impossible, when they play. Which is it's interesting that we kind of have a similar play style in that regard.
Yeah, well, I used to play with media, and then I tried playing without them, and then I never went back, honestly, because it's it's just so much more efficient to use workers and just defend the workers with majors. We're gonna fight better, you know.
Yeah, I 100% agree. I felt exactly the same way when I did it.
Like settling for something worse when you can have like two specialist units that combine together form into the better version of it, you know.
Yeah.
So if nobody has anything else to say on this, Louis?
No, not really. Just something. No, nothing really interesting.
All right.
Okay. Who's did you
Well,
have anything to say about media at all? I know you were kind of saying you didn't, but I still want to give you a chance just in case you had anything you wanted to
No,
add.
no, no. I appreciate that. No, I really am here as an audience. I mean, I'm having a great time listening. That's why I'm also dropping stuff in the stream chat. I just I'm learning so much about all this stuff. So no, I really appreciate all the thought you guys have put into this.
Yeah, of course.
all right. Well, I wouldn't change much to be honest. I would kind of keep him like that, and I think the 200 fungus at the start of the game is good. It's kind of like the Rising Tide start where you get the dead Ant Queen, and I know I think it was Ungar who said Rufa colonies should start with that, but even now that leaf cutters start with food, I think it gives them a good head start because like everybody said, the leaf cutters struggled very early on, so giving them that boost kind of helps alleviate the struggle.
Yeah, I agree. I felt like every time I've played Leaf Cutters in free play, it's been a huge struggle at the beginning because it's like you can't afford media because they're 80 food to start and you need to have some workers to start getting your food going. And so if anything attacks you, you just can't, or if anything gets like in the way of leaves, you just can't do
Yeah,
anything.
you're
So,
just waiting for leaves to be just like around, and it's not like you can go underground too because there's no food underground for leaf cutters. You gotta
yeah.
go up. All right. Well, I think leaf cutters were done pretty well, to be honest. I think we now get to the big heads.
Well, so I know that you all were kind of talking about some changes to leaf cutters. Were there any like were there things that you would have done even differently than what we have right now, or do you think they've gone like in the like direction that you think they should go?
I think it was Ongar that was mad about the leaf cutters. Let's see. Can I find? Yeah, his leaf cutters. He wanted to bring the cost back to normal, but they carry on the increased harvest. And at level 3, the ability would be to reduce the times to cut leaves by 2 seconds. And while on speed plant increased by 70 plus 40% evasion chance while carrying leaves. Um
Hmm.
I'm not sure what the what the thinking was behind this because upgrading to level 3 is very tedious and it just feels like a lot of overkill for harvesting leaves. Harvesters should be spammable, not like units you spend like a lot of money in. But to be honest, yeah.
Well, I mean, I
Uh,
think Ungar really likes having it so that it's worth it to upgrade units to level 3. So I think
yeah.
that might have been his rationale behind that, and I think those changes are really cool. Like I think making the animation of cutting leaves shorter is a really cool idea. Giving the evasion chance while they're carrying leaves, I think, is cool too. We might have to, if we're doing the evasion chance, we might have to like alter their targeting because right now, because they are counted as soldier units, they will drop food that they're carrying to
Yeah,
go
they'll just
fight.
drop the food.
Yeah, so we might have to just change that so they behave more like workers, but that's a pretty easy thing to fix. And
If they are.
if
Oh, if
attack is
attack.
off, that's a good point actually. Ungar's typing in Discord chat now, but yeah, actually, yeah, if the attack is off, that's true. They will just keep walking, so that's a good point. So yeah, that actually would help that up. That would help that really well, actually. That's a good idea. I mean, yeah, I think this is a fine change.
But
I
it still doesn't fix the fact that they cost 80 for something that would still be worse than than miners. Those changes I don't
yeah,
think would make them better at harvesting.
and the thing is, I think maybe with these changes, if you got them up to level 3, they'd surpass workers spam, but that's a
It's
big
level
investment,
3.
and it doesn't help in the early game.
Yeah, 240 food for one ant. Yes, it might be very good at harvesting, but you can't get a lot of them. You know, especially in levels like with the harvest, where you only. Well, I guess we're talking free play. Never mind. Uh, but in free play, if you have to like, let's say, get quickly rolling because you have an enemy vigorous colony, the slow start will really won't help you at all.
Yeah, so I think it's a cool idea, and I'd be fine if they went this way. I'm also just not unhappy with what they have though. So, but yeah.
Okay. Well, I wish Ungar could talk because it was his idea, but maybe when he'll be back.
Yeah, if
he
he
could
comes
explain
on,
it
if he can
better.
get things going later, we can just go back to some of these things. That'd be fine.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, Gooey, who's any last things to say before we go to Big Headed Ants?
Lord.
Oh, hey, Ungar, we can hear you.
Ungar's stream up? I
Yeah,
think
I'm alive.
Ungar's stream is up.
Yeah, I'm back. All right. I do agree that that makes their early game kind of bad. But is that not kind of the point of leaf cutters? If we just give everything like a 30 food cheap unit, then all of the colonies just kind of meld into the same thing. And I kind of like the diversity. Leaf cutters being strong late game, so you have to like figure out how to survive early game colonies. It adds challenge and makes them unique, in my opinion.
Okay, I would say yes, but on the other hand, sometimes it just feels unfair. Like imagine you're playing free play, you get out your nest, and then you see, I don't know, like some enemy blocking off the leaves, so you have to wait to just go get them because you can't afford any bigger units to at least
They
clear your
It did
path.
change, unlike in the campaign, underground leaf cutters get food. So,
Oh, they do?
yeah, leaf cutters do get food underground. So if you were afraid of something coming after you early game, you could just stay underground and build up a small force. I would say the food underground is pretty much equal to what normal colonies get. So depending on map, you could get like couple thousand food underground.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's
But yeah.
interesting.
I mean, I like them being late game behemoths, which is kind of what I was going for with that change, wanting you to level them up even more, just like the majors getting super powerful on level 3. Because that's kind of their whole draw, is that they're giant ants that are, individually super strong, but you can't really get a lot of them. Reducing their power and making them cheaper kind of just undermines the whole point of the leaf cutters and makes them more similar to other colonies, which, a lot of the colonies are already pretty similar to each other. So that's just what I was thinking with those changes.
Yeah, I guess you're right. You don't want to make them let's say overused, but I was thinking, like termites. You have the staple, the termite that's made for harvesting, the major termite. It's meant to be spammed a lot, you know. But you do upgrade them a bit, so you could have a mix of it being more spammable, but still having a reward for being upgraded to other levels. Because right now there's just no incentive to level up the media, except maybe nah. I was gonna say, but that's campaign. Um, but yeah, there's no incentive to level up, so I agree with that. It's just that if you lock it um behind what's it called? Yeah, leveling up, you'll just incentivize workers instead of media. So
Mm-hmm.
there'll be no point to use the media, and you'll be back to square one.
Indeed, indeed. Maybe sort of like how termite workers, they get like 15, then 30, then 45. Instead of a huge jump, maybe we give like a weaker version of this ability all the way down at level 2 instead of just a giant jump at level 3. Would that help?
Yeah, probably. If you give more of an incentive to level up earlier, it would
Yeah,
like
okay. So,
termites are a great example of this. You know, you want to level up your termites. It's one of the few colonies where,
it
except
levels
for
up
fire ants,
really.
maybe, where you always want to level up. You know, because it's very good to upgrade.
Yeah. Okay, so we're thinking maybe give the leaf cutters like a weaker version of that level 3 ability for level 2, and then I mean at level 1 they also get just that increased harvest from the 65 version. What do
Well,
we
we'd
think
have to
about
run the
that?
math to see what would make them competitive with workers. But yeah,
Yeah, I mean, yeah, workers are just really good. You have to take into account minims. Minims completely change everything. They are crucial to the leafcutter economy. So, upgrading also doesn't give you more minims, which means that then your minim economy is kind of weak.
yeah, it's just dependent on miners,
Which
That's
makes
which
kind
is
it
of
why the
pretty hard to balance leafcutters without making them spammy, because you need a lot of units, but at the same time their units are all big and tanky and powerful. So it really gets difficult keeping their main draw intact without making them complete garbage.
I guess
that's why you want it
maybe
consistent.
maybe another idea for how we could do this is we could make it so that minims are tied to the level of the ant as well as how many ants you have. So like a level 2 brood chamber could have 2 minims. And that
Mm.
could be a way to kind of circumvent that.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
that would actually probably like that would be good, right? Because then at the same time, it also, mages are super powerful at level 3, but getting them up there, also only gives them one. So giving an extra minim on each level would then make a level 3 leafcutter media be a beast at harvesting, along with having a good amount of minims to support inside the nest for the harvesting process. That's a grand idea.
And
Yeah.
it would still like mean that workers aren't like useless because they're still the cheapest way to get more minims. And so I think it still works well like that. It just makes it so that 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 their colony isn't so reliant on just spamming a lot of workers to keep up with the media harvesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do love this. Especially the numbers of my memes.
Yeah,
Gooey, you were really quiet. Could you talk louder?
Yeah,
yeah, I
yeah.
turned them up to 200%.
Interesting. Why you were
All
fine
right.
before? I don't know why you're so
Very
quiet all of a sudden.
Something.
I talk quite a lot.
It's still a bit quiet.
I can talk a bit louder, yes.
Yeah, that's
Okay,
better.
that's
That's
good.
better.
Oh yeah. The mic was up.
So what were you saying?
I was just saying that I do like the idea of increasing the numbers of minims. That's kind of the point where they struggle a lot is the conversion from leaves to food. That's a good point to start. It's just really good.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, okay. I think that's I think that's a neat idea. I think that's probably
Yeah.
like that seems like a good way to like no matter how we change any of the units, this could be a good way to kind of help encourage like any kind of changes to the units is that they always just they give you more minims as you go up and you don't have to spam a bunch of weak units. So that's a
Yeah,
neat
we
idea.
would certainly encourage it.
Yeah, that's a
Certainly.
good idea. I mean,
Because and then if people
it,
still want to spam a bunch of units, they still can. Like they're not like forced into leveling, or they're not forced into spam. They can kind of go either way.
mhm. Yeah, it makes me leaf
Okay.
cutters more, you know, can do more with them.
So I think that's a good idea. So we said making more minims per level.
Mm-hmm.
We
And
said
then the
we keep the harvest rate up. I still think the price should be down though. I still think the price for the media being 65 is a good price.
65, that's like a slave maker though.
Yeah, I
I
kind of
like them
don't
being
really like the fact that them the same cost as an ant. It makes
Well,
them
aren't the
less
stats
neat.
very similar? Like the fighting stats at least from slave
Yeah,
makers.
yeah, they were actually. At
I
some
know
point they
level
were
one
the
slave
exact
makers are
same.
pretty bad, but
yeah.
like
At,
when you compare the median.
yeah, I
Let
compared them.
me
I tried, and at level 3, both were literally the same. Like they killed themselves both of them.
let me
Both
check
died.
really quickly
One
what
one.
how right now their stats compare to slave maker ants because I think at least at level 3. So let's see. Their food per DPS. Oh well, okay. So right now, like slave maker ants, once they get to level 3, they're like, yeah, they're blowing. Um, they're blowing the current leaf cutter media out of the water. They have way higher. They have way higher DPS. Their survivability is actually also better.
Yeah.
Yeah, so they would be winning that pretty handily in that regard. So even if they were the same price as slave maker ants are a better like combat unit. Up for that by being able to harvest extra because slave maker ants aren't that good at harvesting.
Yeah. I mean,
Okay, well maybe further nerf the attack and defense of media since we want them to be focused on harvesting and keep the
well,
price low.
but I mean, then you have, if you just want cheaper units, you have workers. It kind of just makes media like,
The goal was to make him competitive with workers, no?
yeah, but I mean, making them
Because
pretty
right now
much
the meta
like,
is you just spam workers and you ignore the media.
but if you make media weaker and cheaper, then you pretty much just make like a very slightly better version of the worker, which kind of just it makes them really similar to the worker. And how do I put this? Having two distinct forms of a harvester, one who's more powerful and one who's more weaker. Like in 3.1, you see them sending out media and workers together to complement each other's harvesting abilities, which I really like the look of, just seeing the big ones and the small ones together, and making
But the,
them like the same thing is just, I don't know, it just makes them similar to something like, well, slave makers, just cheaper, which isn't really the leafcutter way.
but let's not act like the 3.1 colony is very
Is
good.
good.
It's quite bad. And I'm not saying it's because of the media, but there's just no point to sending right now, at least there's no point to sending media and workers. There's nothing that incentivizes it. Unless there was like some sort of like boost that the ants would get if they were like in synergy. I don't see it being ever worth it to, unless you like the look of it. but it's not gonna be optimal. Is all I'm saying.
Hmm.
And
Yeah, and then you
so
just
another
have.
thing.
So then the workers, if you replace the media with, or the workers with the media.
Yes, Bovat?
I was just gonna say, like, I, I think like, no matter what, still like, if these changes, like, I mean, I think if you're in a free play game and you have the changes that we have currently, it's still gonna be worth it to send your workers and your media out together, because you still need a lot of workers to be able to get more minims, because it's the cheapest way to get them. Workers are still efficient, even if they're not as efficient as the media. They're still efficient, and media are still like, they're still really good combatants. I mean, right now they are better combatants than they are in the campaign, because their damage and their health didn't get nerfed enough to offset how much cheaper they are. So now, like, so it's still like a really good idea to have both go out, because if you already have a bunch of workers who are there to give you more minims, it's you might as well still send them out. So I kind of I almost feel like this way of how they've
Yeah,
made them makes it so that you want your workers and your media to go out together.
yeah, that's true actually because I kind of forgot. You do need to still worker spam a bit to get your minims, but then if you realize that when you have enough minims, you have the choice between media and workers for harvesting, and you realize media are better, then you'll make medias and miners together. So honestly, I think Ungar, you should be happy about this. To be honest, unless you're trying to make the the media kind of like the termite minor soldiers that complement good the termite major soldiers, and you want to take them more into a battle approach. But I think they're
No.
better off being like a staple harvester of the colony more than a
Yeah,
fighter.
that's what I want them to be, but I don't like them being cheap, because then they kind of just turn into like every other ant who's just like a $50 to $60 cheap spam unit, and then all the colonies just kind of slowly become the same. If I am allowed to move, just to mention another area where I see this sort of being similar is with the big-headed ant major buffs have turned it into pretty much just a different version with slightly different stats that pretty much make it similar in role to a fire ant vigorous soldier, and they're just all the same thing, which really just reduces the diversity of the colonies and pretty much just makes two units. You have a cheap spammable harvester and then a big strong major unit, and that's pretty much just what I've seen from these balance changes. All the units are sort of going into one of those two categories.
Well, so I want to
Um,
ask, because at least in my mind, I consider like cheap ants in this game to be like 40 food or less. And I feel like once you get to the 65 mark, they're getting into like, this is like mid to high expenses. So I feel like them being 65 still doesn't make them cheap and spammable. Like, I feel like I can't get a whole, like, if I'm playing slave makers, I always feel like I'm running behind because I can't get enough of them out because they're expensive, and I feel
yeah.
like that's it. They are also 65, and leafcutter food, like, you get it slower than you would with like the other colonies. So I still feel like I'm curious as to like why you feel that they're still cheap spammable units. Like, they're cheaper than they used to be, but I still feel like they're expensive overall.
In free play, you can get food for leafcutters a lot more easily than you do in, say, the campaign. You have underground food. If you're playing normal free play, food regenerates. So there really isn't a shortage of food, which allows leafcutters in free play compared to the campaign to grow at a exponential rate. If you put like a mid-tier leafcutter colony into free play, it will grow on par with other colonies just because of how much more food they get compared to the campaign. Whereas in termites, you actually see them struggle to get food and actually have a more different economy. The leafcutter economy in free play is balanced so that it is quite similar to the other colonies in food available, and it's just the extra like 10 seconds or 15 depending on how efficient your nest is to use the minimums to process it.
Okay.
Yeah, and also the fact that their food source is a lot less competed for, because, for example, every meat-eating colonies, for example, there's the fish stray colonies just take it apart slowly. For example, yeah, little things like that. And there's a lot of other meat-eating colonies, but leafcutters just are the only ones using the leaves, and except for the challenge mode in campaign, which isn't in free play, the leaves just are just uncontested most of the time.
Yeah, that is an amazing point. Free play is not at all the same as the campaign. You have many different things, many randomized factors, and just having that uncontested food source allows leafcutters to, I mean, even before they changed it to 65, right now, leafcutters grow absurdly quickly, which pretty much just negates them being late game and puts them into mid game. You will see like leafcutters start pumping out majors in like 5 to 10 minutes if you have like, you know, a pretty good cheat setting on them. Like I run it with timid, fast, and cheater just to get a good colony, because right now they still attack way too quickly on anything above timid, and they'll just pump out units absurdly quickly, uncontested food sources. Food really is not a problem in free play.
Ungar, are you when you're making those comments, are you making them against the beta changes that
Just even majors in free play is crazy. It's really strong.
Yeah, I would say that they even they're just I would call it exponential growth, because since their food is pretty much uncontested, whereas, you know, every other meat harvesting colony, as each other colony grows and competes with the food source, and, you know, things like the stray ants coming to eat stuff, even with more units, the amount of food that they can collect only increases steadily. But with leafcutters, it just exponential growth. Nothing contesting you
Oh, yeah.
besides how many units you can get there. So if you start collecting more units, you get more food, you can build more units, and then the game is just already over if you allow leafcutters to go past 5 minutes. They are no way late game units with the 65 cost in the beta right now.
Oh yeah, that actually, as I think about it, I mean, obviously I'm the least experienced of the folks on here, and as I think about it, that makes a ton of sense. When I've played leaf cutters, for me, it's either, no pun intended, it's either feast or famine. And when I feast, I crush, right? Like when I can get to the leaves, I absolutely destroy everything. But you're right, like it is, there's this tug of war over the meat eaters' food, over the meat. Versus, you're right, like the only thing that limits the leaf cutters is how fast the leaves respawn.
Yeah.
So you're all saying that we should add more challenges to get the leaves,
No, not
because
at all.
that's the real problem, no?
No, I don't think moving them down to 65 is needed for free play. They they work fine with being 80 cost. You can get that much food for leaf cutters. It's not a problem of cost. It's
You're saying it's a problem of abundance, then?
um
So
hmm.
personally, I do think giving more challenge to gathering leaves, for example, I think, in my opinion, bringing the forward flies into free play, since the campaign abilities of being immune to a forward flies attack when gathering leaves from level 3 is still in free play, bringing forward flies would bring challenge to collecting leaves and would
Mhm.
give this level 3
And
ability some use.
oh, I just had a grand idea. If you add that, even if media are weaker, then that gives you a reason to build them if one of your leaf areas is contested with forward flies, because workers don't have that ability, which
Yeah, they
gives
get
media a unique ability targeted towards harvesting and incentivizes late game upgrading and stuff. Great idea. Bring forward
Won't you
flies to
just
free play.
use your
yeah.
level 3 majors that you'll build anyways to fight?
And so you're saying builds majors to defend supply lines.
Yes,
They're not,
because they're better at fighting.
yeah, but against forward flies is not really that great against chasing them off.
I mean,
If
yeah, then the leaf cutters being expensive have a problem of getting their armies places and defending stuff since they have less units, less maneuverability. So sending out majors to go to the other side of the map where your harvesters are just to clear some forward flies leaves you open to attacks, because if you're getting level 3 majors, we can assume that you have a good amount of them, because of the
Yeah.
way upgrading works. So you're pretty much just sending all of your majors out to this one point. Like, probably you're not really going to be harvesting towards an enemy colony because of the way the AI will target harvesting groups occasionally. So that means sending your majors away from the front line, leaving the enemy colonies able to, collect resources and commit to attacks.
Okay, yeah, I see your point. I see your point. But then, do you think it's still good to spend 240 food on one level 3 media?
Well, if it also gets the changes that I talked about, giving it the increased harvesting speed and stuff, that would not only make it a better harvester, but allow your majors to do stuff. And workers still have a goal. Like you'd build like a squad of media, to support versus the forward flies and just threats. But the workers are still good. I mean,
Yes. So if I
yeah.
understand right, you want the media to be like a very small group that goes and deals with forest flies and complements uh workers and like defends them, but you're still gonna be spamming miners as the main
I
bulk of
want
your army.
I want media and miners to sort of support each other, and I feel like that forward fly change would make them each distinct harvesters, one being more powerful and expensive, and one being cheaper and more efficient. And they would complement each other. And you'd
Yeah, but
have
it would
like
inherently make one very rare, whilst the other one would be everywhere. You know, you wouldn't upgrade your meat or your miners, but you would have a small group of upgraded level 3 media.
which is
So you'd
sort
have a
of
very small
how
group of
ant
them.
colonies work in real life. How often do you really see the bigger casts?
No, I know,
Not
but it's just not gonna be like you said you wanted to be like in 3.1. You know?
Yeah. Okay. So, but it's still not really a problem. You can get enough food to build the media.
I
Like
know. It's
not
just you're gonna be spending a lot of money to get level 3s. You know, it's a lot of food
it is a lot of food.
because
yeah,
to upgrade to level 3 you need, let's say, a 19 group, right? So 19 times 80 times 3,
It
it's a
is
lot
a
of food.
lot of food.
It's a lot of food right there. And
yeah,
imagine just
But that
spending
gives
that
you
on.
some really quality harvesters who are able to combat the forest flies.
yeah.
Yeah, but
Also,
that's why I'm saying if you want them to be level 3, the price reduction might help to, because it's a very big investment. All I'm saying, you could just be making majors with those because you'll be making the majors anyways.
yeah,
And
that's kind
even
of
if
what I
it
was.
might take a little more time, then at least you have your level 3 majors, you know?
Yeah, that's kind of what I was seeing with the 45s being added. Maybe keep the cost reduction because then still incentivize both.
Yeah, that's why I'm in favor of keeping the cost reduction.
Yeah, it would make them less like special in terms of cost. Yeah, that's a price
I mean, okay,
I
if
like.
if you're incentivized to upgrade them, would 70 food suffice for you guys? I would be fine with 70 food. I think 65 is just a little too cheap.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, at that point, you could
70,
work
okay.
out the math. Yeah.
No, reduced to 70 food. They keep the increased harvest from the beta. They get these huge harvesting buffs on level 2 and 3. They're able to fight off forward flies. Would that make them a good complement to workers? I would be fine with having them be 70 food.
Yeah, honestly, that sounds really good.
That
Yeah,
sounds
that
good?
sounds good
All
to
right.
me.
So
Does everyone agree?
wait. I have a question for you.
Yes.
I mean, obviously, you need to figure out, or you need to have recommendations around kind of like default levels. But if you're talking free play, why not have it all be sliders? You know, like difficulty levels in other games where you can, like, I don't know if any of you have ever played something like Stellaris, but you can, or Factorio, you can adjust pretty much any parameter in there, and it does have some kind of presets and things like that. But why, in free play mode, not provide the player the opportunity to tweak it the way they want? In fact, this is if you go back to when I first started, when we first started this group, one of my gripes about the way Slug Disco had made Empires. I mean, granted, it was still early access. They were working on just getting the 1.0 done. But one of my gripes was that you couldn't configure your own game and kind of export it so that if, for example, all of us wanted to do the same challenge, like we ran into this, right, with our community challenges, it would have been so great if we had just been able to say, here's the exported challenge file. Go ahead and load this. This is the challenge we're all doing today, rather than all of the back and forth that we all had in our channels around, oh wait, oh shoot, I didn't explain this well, or I didn't explain that well, or somebody misunderstood that. So why not sort of take that to the next step, where not only have the ability to create these custom scenarios, but export the custom scenarios, but actually make custom scenarios. So if, for example, people who are less able, like myself, think 60 makes more sense than 65, we could do that. And for those who are, even if 75, okay, or 70 or whatever is the default, like, why not make those kind of recommendations to the Select Disco folks?
So you're
To
saying
be
to be
able to
to
tweak the game file or like the game stats is what you're
Well,
asking.
It's,
They
yeah, go ahead, Gooey.
yeah, but yeah, from what I've been seeing on the news on the Discord channel, that will be giving more customizability in terms of unit combination. I don't know if in terms of costs changes, they will let us change that. I don't think that they're giving us more customizability in terms of units. What I've seen.
And I
Yeah,
just
they're
as
So-
adding the vector editor.
just as something to add, just because I'm part of the like testing group, this idea has been thrown around. Evidently, according to John, it's not easy to implement. And so I think like the idea has been tossed around a little bit, and they've kind of, and I don't think they've made a decision whether they're gonna do it or not. But like from what I've heard, this is something they've considered, and it's something that they know is difficult to do, and it would take a while. So yeah, they have thought about it, at least is all I kind of
Yeah, I can. So I'm not surprised. And by the way, I'm, I guess, a retired, I don't know, recovering software engineer. And I can imagine that if they didn't set out to do that, the data structures that they would have created are so much easier if they're not customizable. If they do it the way they've done in the beta branch, where they're like, okay, well, we've changed these numbers. What they've done is they've changed the numbers in the sort of configuration. But to have them adjustable on the fly means you need to design for that. And they probably haven't done that because, they're a small company, right? And they didn't expect necessarily, or they didn't know necessarily how the game was going to do, whether they would continue to have their jobs, whether they'd be able to make money. So now that the game has been successful, this is the sort of technical debt that you unfortunately accrue, and it becomes frustrating for these folks that want to do that. So I can certainly empathize, and that's actually really insightful, Bovine. I appreciate that insight.
Yeah. I can't say like lots of details about the testing server because obviously, but like, yeah, they've talked about it a little bit.
I mean, like, that's just the simplest way to fix everything. Give everyone the ability to customize stats to how they like it. Boom, every single problem fixed. The problem
Yeah.
is then just implementing that. Because then I
Yeah.
could have my 80 cost leaf cutters. You guys could have your 65. No more debates.
Yeah,
But
that's true.
since that's not in the game, we have to figure out a in between for now. If that comes to become a thing, that would change the entire game. That would be beautiful. Customization would increase tenfold. And I would actually really like that. That would be super cool. It would allow for a lot more customization. But right now, since we don't have it, I mean, yeah, I guess that's sort of the purpose of today, is to find an in-between that everyone agrees on, and work with what we have.
So
fair enough.
I think
Fair enough.
Yeah, fair enough.
I think that our idea now of like introducing forward flies to free play, making upgrading media more worthwhile than it is with giving them better harvesting things, giving minims for each level of leaf cutter as opposed to like for each just individual like ant that you place down, and then maybe increasing leaf cutter media to like 70 food. Seems kind of like, maybe it's not like perfect for everybody, but that kind of seems like seems like it's closer to what everybody's looking for. Is that kind of what I'm hearing from this?
Yes.
Yeah.
I would be perfectly fine with it being 70.
Yeah, we do.
Yeah, honestly, you keep we're like, just to make it clear, we keep the stats of harvesting, we keep the attack and defense nerf, we put the price to 70, and we give the minims per upgrade. Am I missing something else?
No,
I think that's good.
I think what we could do is write it out in the debate channel just for easy access. I can go plop
Yep.
this in now. Okay, so media. We say price equals 70. Gets +1 minimum for each level. What else did we say? Let me just copy and paste in the.
Keep the beta stats, right? We said keep the beta stats.
Yeah.
Did we, the lower health and stuff?
Yeah, the lower health and the higher harvest.
And to be honest, I think even if we increase the food like up a little bit, because right now they have, because of the price decrease, they have their attack powers better than what they are in the campaign. So I think even if you increase the price by 5, their attack power would either be about the same as what they are in the campaign, or maybe still a little bit better. So I think that's probably still a good change.
Yeah. Alright, so then. Wait, let me. Alright, almost done with this. And we said for the upgrade for, like, you know, time carrying leaves stuff, we're keeping that and also giving it a slightly weaker version on level 2.
Level 2.
I think that's cool. I'm really in favor of making animations go faster as a way to buff units. I think that's a really cool way to go about
It just
it.
makes sense. Like, if you climb up a big plant, the amount of time it takes to climb up that, cut off a leaf, and climb back down is so much longer than, like, the smaller 60-40 plants, and it just slows them down a lot. So having the media be able to work faster would just increase the speed that they can collect leaves, which makes them just directly better harvesters.
Yeah,
that
I think
makes
that's
sense.
cool.
They are
Yep.
stronger, so they cut through leaves faster. They don't need to take as much time as good.
All right.
Right.
But do we keep the respawn cost at 6, or do we upgrade it to 7 if they're?
Ooh,
I think we keep it at 6. I don't think that's ever really been an issue. So
Yeah,
I
they
think
were at
that's
6
fine.
when they cost 80 anyways. So.
Yeah.
Could I request that they keep their old health, because they already just get shredded?
Yeah.
But
And I
since
really-
they cost 10 less, the cost per food is
Per food,
basically similar.
Better.
Yeah,
Okay,
and I would
mean,
also say
it is
like the
possible.
decrease in survivability for their food cost is really slight. It's not. It's like it's really, really tiny. If we increase the food cost, it'll be a little bit bigger, but I think the offset that they have more DPS and way more harvesting, I think is always a worthwhile trade. Plus, like, they're already really tanky units, and I think that maybe almost takes away a little bit from Leafcutter Majors, because the Majors are unbelievably tanky, and so I almost feel like the media shouldn't be that tanky, and the Majors should make up for that.
Okay. What is the current health with the balance changes?
It's
The current health is... Well, okay, do you want current health or current survivability?
I mean just raw health. What's the number?
It
for that?
went down.
The raw
20
health is-
from.
Yeah, it's 80, 95, 110 right now.
Okay. And what was it before? Just plus 20 on each of those?
it's
Yeah.
Which I mean, really.
Oh yeah, it
like
is.
A fire ant sting with like 11 damage, so that's only like 2 extra stings. Yeah, it's not really that much. And I mean, if they get the evasion chance when carrying leaves, that gives them, you know, more
a lot
power
more
while
health.
they're doing what they're supposed to. Yeah, okay.
I think
So what
this
do you
will
guys
work
think?
really
I
good.
posted it in the debate channel. Is that everything covered? Is that easy to read? Obviously, we can open it up a bit. But is that
Yeah, I think it
everything
looks
that we've
good,
covered
honestly.
in the video? Is everyone
Yeah.
happy with these changes?
I think so, yeah.
I'm happy.
Yeah.
Sorry, stream, I
Well, I
can't
would-
show that. I don't want to reveal everything on my Discord. But yeah, just listen to what we were saying, and then that's what we have written down.
Might I add that the minims per each level would be for every ant in the colony, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Get +1 minimum for each level, and then I'll put parentheses. Once for every. Come on, how do you spell it? Every ant. My spelling's not the best. Okay, I spelled apply as well. There we go.
And
Bada boom, bam,
since
pow.
Tongar, you weren't there when we talked about it, how do you feel about the 200 extra food they get at the start of the game?
The
the Leaf Cutters?
200 food. I
They
mean,
currently get 100 food right now, so it's just increased by 100.
increased by 100, which yeah, I mean, I'm okay with that. I don't think it's very much needed since, you know, leaf cutters, unlike in the campaign, they have the underground food. They have a lot more food usually close to them that respawns over time. How many media could you get with that? Like two media with that?
If
But
there's
you would need to
70,
get miners.
you could
that's
get about
140.
3 of them. Oh no, you could
Well,
only
you
get
have to
2. You're
hatch
right.
all the workers, right? You have to hatch the starting workers.
Yeah,
could
you could
probably
only get
get-
2 media like that.
You only get two. Okay, yeah.
Yeah, but we're
that's-
forgetting that leaf cutters start with 19 workers.
yeah,
Or no,
so
that's
that-
the AI. It's the AI that starts with 19.
All
not
of
No,
them.
the player 2.
Players
The
two.
player 2 starts
The
with
player
19.
2? Oh, I
Yeah.
didn't know.
Yeah,
this.
they just spawn and cost a bit of food each spawn.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
Then
it
the
isn't
200
really
food might be a bit of
200.
overkill. It might be overkill with 200 food, honestly.
Yeah, that's why I said I don't really think it's needed, just because of how leaf cutters are different from the campaign. Free play, well, from my many hours playing it, is not at all like the campaign, which is why I
Yeah.
play it instead of the campaign.
Yeah.
They're not the same thing at all. There's many different factors. A lot is different in how the campaign functions from free play, which makes it difficult to balance things from, like, I know Thicky especially loves playing Drive Them Back, and if you didn't even know, players have had 19 for like months. When was the last time you
Yeah.
played free play?
A while. A while.
Oh,
But
I played
Yeah, I
free play to
guess that's
test out
fair.
an ECC challenge like a week ago, so I've done a little bit of it lately.
though they do have more expenses, like, you know, they have to build refuse tiles, leaf tiles,
Yeah.
you know. So they
So-
do have more expenses at the start of the game, but
well, you
the
have that
100
underground food.
extra might.
Yeah, it doesn't
Yeah, it might
allow
be a
to
bit of
get the
overkill.
major.
So
I
I
would
think
say
you can
it's
we
not
could get rid
needed.
of the extra 100 food. Honestly, this.
Well, you know what? It could, like Husta said, be like a slider. What I kind of want is also like being able to give yourself starting food in like certain occasions if you want to be like the front line nest, where you start with extra stuff if you don't like playing the early game, giving a slider to every colony, being able to spawn them with food
Yeah.
nearby.
Just like Matabilis.
Yeah, being able to turn that into a slider might fix the problem. If you want to have that 200, you can have it. If you want a slightly harder game, you could reduce it down to 100. I just don't think the 200 is needed, but yeah, that's my opinion on the extra food. It really doesn't change much.
Okay,
Okay,
so do
cool.
we say we keep it or do we change it?
I mean, we can be indifferent about it. I don't know. Like, the other thing too is that a lot of these changes were put in place for like newer players who are struggling with leaf cutters, because I can imagine a new player having a really hard time with leaf cutters in free play if they only start with 100 food. So I'm not. I think it's maybe different for us because we've been playing this for a while. I think for a newer player, it might be a good idea.
Something that might fix that, and that I don't know why they don't already have, is that tutorial tab is just a huge thing with only one tutorial. I feel like it would be beneficial to add like a leaf cutter tutorial. Here's how you play the termites. Here's how you play the Matabili. You want an advanced tutorial? Learn how to
campaign.
attack which?
That's
Like,
the
yeah.
campaign though.
Not really.
No, it
Wait,
shows
there-
like how the whole game
Yeah,
works.
but like
There
if
used to
free
be
play
a
was
leaf cutter
different
tutorial. What
from the
happened to
campaign-
it?
There was?
There was?
Yeah, there was a you did it. There was a
Oh yeah, YouTube video. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah,
It was like you did a black ant level
they could
and then a
have, you
leaf
know how
cutter.
there's the basic tutorial with black ants? They could have one with wood ants, one with
That's what I
well,
mean.
not necessarily wood ants, but you know, Matabilis and
Matabili, termite, and leaf cutter would be
Yeah.
pretty nice. I mean, like,
oh no,
the
it is in the
campaign-
demo. If you play the demo, there's a tutorial leaf
There's
cutter
the
level there,
cubicle.
and it teaches you how to do it.
And
Oh.
not really. And it just throws you in. The cubicle?
Yeah.
Whatever it's called.
the
You don't even
Crucible.
get majors in that one. Crucible? Yeah, whatever it's called. You don't get majors, and it kind of just tells you to build stuff and not really why.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Yeah, then
So, do we add that to suggestions, adding extra tutorial levels?
Any tutorials?
Because it would make sense. It would make a lot of sense to have a tutorial level for the more
More
complicated ants.
Tutorials.
yeah, there's
Or LC. Matabili.
there's a YouTube video on how to play leaf cutters on the Sluggish.
Yeah, but it's a video. It's not like the actual
Yeah.
tutorial.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I feel like the campaign does an alright job at providing a tutorial. It's just not as in depth as like the Black Ant tutorial, because it's not made to be a tutorial. It's made to be a level. You're like competing with this colony, just thrown right into the battlefield. Like, why are they so big? What is this? Leaves? And even if it's not much, I feel like a small tutorial being like, okay, so you collect the leaves and you turn it into fungus, and like having the the little like circles that appear on things, points of interest in the tutorial, it would just make it a little better.
Yeah, I'm definitely not opposed to more tutorials, so I'm fine with that.
And I mean, it would be pretty fun, hop in a Matabili tutorial, go kill the termites.
Well,
Alright.
now that I think about it, there's like technically, like in the campaign levels, in the first campaign level in the sets, for example, in 3.1, they explain to you a bit how the leaf cutter works. In 5.
Yeah, but it's not as in depth as, let's say,
Yeah.
the tutorial, like when you load up
Yeah.
the game, there's the
Yeah.
actual tutorial for how to play like the basic game, but it would be kind of helpful because yes, whilst 3.1 does have like the tooltips and does have the narrator to tell you a bit what to do, it's not in depth
Yeah. I mean,
mechanic
isn't it
and
something
wise.
that has to balance being an introductory to the species and actually being a level for more experienced players who are doing it on impossible. So it doesn't really do being a intro tutorial.
Like it doesn't really teach you,
Full
yeah, it doesn't really teach you how to build like a proper nest. What
Yeah.
minims do in detail. How you should build your army. Where you should harvest. It's very
Yeah.
superficial.
Yeah, okay.
And same with like the
I-
Matabili and the termite levels. Also just
I think
balance
that's
things
trick. I
together.
think that's tricky to do. Putting myself in the shoes of the folks who might be writing, I think that's tricky to do. I mean, so as somebody who's probably newest to the game, of all of you folks, I actually felt like the story mode leaf cutter levels were pretty good. I actually felt honestly like the whole game was really good at, well, except for the most recently released, like the story level 5 stuff with the termites and the Matabele's. But I felt like it was really good at holding your hand to begin with. I think the challenge that you're identifying, and I certainly suffered from it, is once you get past the kind of very beginner level stuff, you're not provided very much insight into really how the game works. And I think, I don't
Yeah.
know if it was Thick One or Ungar who just said, they don't teach you how to build a nest. The stuff that actually made me enjoy playing, I got from you guys, or from a couple other folks who responded to like comments on the videos that I published around the 19 hex nest design. I think Shorn gave me a whole bunch of info on how to work with leaf cutters. So it's when you're trying to get to just slightly more difficult, challenge yourself slightly more, that the game I think wasn't wasn't accessible. Now I will say with the 1.0 additional stats that you can right click on, and get or hover over them and get all the stats for the creatures, that's part of what I was looking for when I was playing regularly. It's and I think they did a wonderful Slug Disco did a wonderful job with that. I think it'd be nice to be able to get those kind of stats out of the game without having to be in a level. Like being able to just go click a creature and get all that stuff. Say again?
Like a creature glossary?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think, and they have all that stuff, right? I mean, obviously. So I wonder if that isn't a fairly easy way, rather than, like I was talking about before with the sliders, and Bovine pointed out, it's a very difficult thing. They know that it's going to be challenging, even if it's something they want to do. I would think being able to provide sort of a separate interface that just lets you have that character glossary or index or what have you would be maybe less challenging, less of a heavy lift. And that, as a relatively inexperienced player, I think could make it much more accessible.
I should
So maybe
throw
that's a
in
suggestion.
that exact thing. They were gonna have a creature encyclopedia in the game that was planned like years ago. Um, I don't know exactly what happened, but they essentially said that they had decided to not do that for whatever reason, and their compromise was that they made an official Slug Disco wiki, so that like the wiki admins didn't have to use fandom to do it. They could put all the information on the official wiki, so that it's not, they even said like it wasn't ideal, it wasn't what they prefer, but that was what they ended up that was what they ended up being able to go with. So those stats exist, they're just not in game, unfortunately.
Yeah, no, and I've actually seen them. I did
cool.
eventually find them. I do wonder though, and since you have their ear, Bovine, I wonder if the sort of reasons for those decisions, because again, when you're a startup and you're trying to just do your early access thing, you may not have the resources, you may not have the direction, but I wonder if they could revisit that concept, because I think it makes the game much more approachable to new players. And that, again, leads to sales, right? Leads to money, So I wonder if that's something maybe that we could suggest they revisit.
Yeah, I'll be honest, as of late, they haven't been like super communicative about what they're doing. I think they're kind of keeping their plans a little close to their chest, just because they want to have the freedom to kind of choose what they're doing and not like commit to something. So like, because like these free play changes, they kind of came out of nowhere. Like John just kind of came up, he's like, hey, I have an update for you all, it's gonna come out like in a few days, and then sent it, and I was like, oh, there's unit changes, that's not what I was expecting. And then shortly after that, it got released to the like public beta. So I will say I will like keep that in mind as to like something to suggest to, but I don't know if they're taking a lot of like feedback
No,
right
fair
now.
enough.
So it's it's
No,
kind of
fair enough.
it's something I'll keep in mind, because I'd like it to be in the game too. I love in-game encyclopedias, but I just don't. I'm not sure how likely it is, I guess I should say.
Right. No, yeah, no. And I mean, it's more just that when they are ready, because there's the other challenge. I saw it. I've been playing this game called Pacific Drive, and it came out I think in February. And that company, it had some bugs in it, and there were some. This game called out for a photo mode. Like I've never really cared about a photo mode in any games, and this one really, really needed it. Just kind of the way it operates. And the company went radio silent for a while, and then after a couple of months, they posted something on Steam that said, "Hey, we know we've been quiet. We are just giving the team a break." And then lately they've been, and actually they did a photo mode. That was the first big thing they did afterward. So there's also that possibility. I know that the Slug Disco, both as a publisher and as a development team, like they've been running all out for years. So I wonder if there isn't a little bit of that going on where they're just trying to recover a little bit.
Yeah, I wouldn't be
Especially
surprised.
after 1.0.
Yeah. But yeah, okay, so really quick, I want to reorient a little bit. I feel like this was still good discussion, but I think we went off a little bit from the unit changes. I think we're probably good on leaf cutters, so let's scooch over to big-headed ants. I also have to go in like 5-10 minutes, so I just wanted to get my piece out about big-headed ants really fast and then let you all continue to talk. And everyone who's on my stream, if you want to jump over to Ungar, you're streaming right now, right?
Yes.
Okay, yeah, so anyone on my stream, if you want to keep hearing the conversation, jump over with Ungar. I just have to go eventually. So really quickly with big-headed ants, this is okay. I've always liked big-headed ant majors. I've always thought they were fun, good units, and I understood that they kind of got overshadowed by the other units in their colony, which made it kind of hard to choose them. And so I understood kind of why people didn't like them, but also I think I think as a unit in isolation, they were good. It's just compared to what they had, they struggled. So with these changes, I just want to say that first off, I think this does differentiate them from the other colony members. I think now there is a reason to take them over. Like I think there's a reason to take all 3 units now. So I think that's a positive. It's not the way I would have gone about it. I really wanted them to just be like dedicated harvesters, kind of like what I wanted leafcutter media to be. So this isn't what I was looking for, but it's kind of I think it's an interesting change. And I ended up playing just a like majors only free play run in preparation for a potential future ECC challenge, and I actually really enjoyed playing it with them. I was kind of surprised. I didn't think I'd enjoy them that much, but I did. I actually thought they were quite fun to play with. In a way that I don't have that much fun playing with Vigorous Fire Ants, and Ungard kind of mentioned that their change feels very Vigorous Fire Ants. They didn't feel like Vigorous Fire Ants for a number of reasons I'll get into, but I thought they felt actually pretty unique, and I thought that was pretty cool. So I'm not unhappy with the changes currently. Just quick math kind of things. So their DPS has increased overall, and their DPS per their food cost has increased. It's now a little closer in line to the big-headed ant miners, because miners are kind of ridiculous in how powerful they are with their DPS, and so now the new numbers are way more in line. What is it doing? I don't know what my thing's doing. Oh well. They're way more in line with the miners now, and at some of the levels they're still a little bit below the miners, so the miners still kind of for their cost or still do more damage than the majors, but their survivability is like way better. It's significantly better than the miners now, and I think that's cool. I think that's a good trade-off for them. Their harvest rate for their food costs has decreased a lot, which was kind of a standout thing that they had before, and now that's kind of gone, so that's maybe something to weigh. So yeah, those are kind of the math things, and like overall, I think this is a fine change if this is the direction they want to go for. I was looking for a different change, but I'm not like unhappy about this. I also don't think, and then like two other kind of housekeeping things. One, I don't think this makes big-headed ants too OP, because I think the things that makes them OP are their workers and their super soldiers, and those didn't get a change. Like, these are stronger now than they used to. I think they have a place in the colony. I don't think they make the colony OP though, so that's cool. And they don't feel too much like fire ants now. I know Ungar was concerned about this, but I just wanted to, and I'd love to talk more with you about this, Ungar, and we can do it later, but just because I have to leave soon, I just want to get this piece out. That I think that fire ants are weird in the campaign in that their special abilities are not extra special abilities. They don't get a ranged attack, they don't get a stun or a taunt, they don't get to like res downed units. Their special abilities are just making their stats better. So with like pervasive, it just makes their hatch cost cheaper. For vigorous, it makes their attack, their speed, their their survivability, it makes all that stuff better. And so basically any changes to an ant that just makes their stats better is going to look a lot like fire ants. And so I kind of feel like the big-headed ant majors still play very differently from fire ants, because fire ants just get their buff for so long, and the big-headed ant majors, it feels like they really are just like, nope, we're getting powerful for like 1, maybe 2 fights, and then that's it. We don't get it anymore, and we're never gonna get it again. Whereas it feels like with vigorous fire ants, because their speed boost is so high and it lasts for so long, they can go through multiple fights and they can run and collect a lot of food really quickly with their boost. And so I feel like it's different enough that it doesn't feel like it's just a clone of fire ants. So yeah, that was my piece that I wanted to say. I probably have to head off now. But yeah, that's all I wanted to mention. Yeah, do with that what you will. Keep having conversation. This is fun. I'll jump on and watch your stream later, Ungar, afterwards. But yeah, this was really fun. I appreciate doing this with all of you. So thank you.
Pleasure having you, Bavine.
Yeah. Okay. Good luck. Have fun. Yeah. Keep talking. This is fun. I'm enjoying this quite a lot. So I'm excited to hear what you all have to say about this. All right. Goodbye.
I'm also gonna drop.
You're heading out to who's? Okay. Cool. Sounds good. Well, yeah. Gooey,
Okay.
thick one on
Thanks,
guard.
everyone.
Yeah. Please continue
Bye-bye.
because this is fun.
Mhm.